What's up, everybody? It's Goddess Z, and I'm back with another episode of Holistic and Spiritual AF. Welcome back, tribe. I am so glad that you have tuned in again. The podcast episodes are getting juicier and juicier. And if this is your first time landing on this channel and this podcast, be sure to hit that follow and subscribe if you're into things such as mind, body, spirit integration. We talk about ancestral wisdom, metaphysics, healing. And in today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about deconstructing religion. So you definitely want to go ahead and hit that follow and that subscribe button on the respective platforms. This platform and podcast can be found on Podbean. I did it first this time, y'all. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere that podcasts are aired. Okay. So be sure to find the platform that suits you and follow me there. I am all over social media, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, at Holistic and Spiritual AF, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Substack, Medium. All over the place. Just Google me, okay? So, we talk about things on this channel, such as the mind, body, spirit integration, because I truly believe that if either one of those things are out of balance, then we are out of balance, okay? So, that's what we talk about on this channel. Let me see. I got to get some business out of the way first because I got some things coming up. On March the 29th, that's a Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be having a masterclass, Energy Hygiene 101. We're going to be talking about how to protect your energy, how to cleanse your auric field, how to prepare your energy body, and to basically these basics and foundational tools that we should be using on a regular basis that keeps us, protected from spiritual energy attacks, as well as ancestral protection. So I'll have that information down in the description, as well as today's guest, Paulina. She's actually going to be having a workshop in May. So I'll have her contact information down in the bottom of the description as well, so you can follow her. So let's get into it. This is episode 43, and it's called Breaking Free, Deconstructing Religion and Reclaiming Spirituality with Paulina. So I sat down with Paulina, and Paulina is a leading voice in religious deconstruction and personal liberation. She is the author of Sacred Deconstruction on Substack, a spiritual life coach, trauma informed life coach, wellness and self care guide, somatic and journal therapy practitioner, and a ghost and content writer. Paulina helps people break free from religious conditioning and reclaim their spiritual sovereignty. And today, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about what it means to deconstruct religion and why so many people are waking up, healing religious trauma and breaking free from guilt, fear, and shame, rebuilding your spirituality outside of dogma and embracing personal truth, somatic and journaling practices to navigate the deconstruction journey, and breaking generational curses and cycles and reclaiming your authentic power. So, yeah, you definitely want to tune in to this episode. This episode is packed full of knowledge, full of wisdom. It was a true honor to talk to her because she really does have this divine mother energy. So definitely check out this episode all the way to its entirety. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, Paulina. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited to have you on the show. I found you on Substack. There's all kinds of hidden gems over there on Substack, and I put it out there in the universe, and you responded. And I love the work that you're doing. So I know that you are doing a lot of work or have done a lot of work surrounding religious trauma and the effects of the of its recovery, like deconstructing religion. You're into journal therapy and expressive writing, self care. You've had your spiritual awakening from religion. Just kind of tell us how that whole journey got started for you.
It's been a long journey, but let me say first, thank you for having me.
Yes.
The journey started, I think all journeys start with wherever you start them. And so I would say it started when I got here, you know, because I immediately delved into religion at a very, very young age. I was a preteen. And I'm one of those who believes that when you come here with purpose. And I believe that I had to go through a lot of different aspects of religion and different denominations and different levels of spirituality to get to where I am now. So it all started with me going into a Pentecostal religion in nature, and it's very rigid, and there's several different sects of it, and I rotated through so many of them. I rotated through being a minister, and I went through seminary, and I saw a lot of the different denominations and how they were functioning from the inside. And I became disenchanted with what I saw because a lot of the answers weren't coming to me that I needed. I would go to leaders for specific answers and just couldn't get them. And it became frustrating for me because things weren't adding up. You know, they say the math ain't mathing. That's kind of where it was for me. And then my personal life took a dive. I had been always battling depression based on some childhood dysfunction and some
Mhm.
childhood trauma, and that didn't add to me being happy. And I couldn't find the answers inside of religion for that depression. It was kind of poo-pooed away in our community. Of course, you know that a lot of times
Mhm.
it's very taboo to discuss.
Mhm.
And so I struggled for many, many, many years trying to find the answers to come out of it. And the depression did not break until I began to deconstruct. I literally had to walk away from church, and that was it. And church was my life. I was addicted to church because that was my outlet. And I began to deconstruct. I began to pull the pieces apart and read other types of things other than the Bible. Stop taking the Bible literally and look at it for the lessons. Jesus spoke in parables, and I began
Mhm.
to assume that a lot of those things were parables, just as he said they would be. And I began to study A Course in Miracles, which I discovered a lot of just amazing things about who I am. And I think that's the core of deconstructing is you find out who you are. You separate the cultural aspect of religion from your actual faith, and you discover who I am outside of religion. Inside of the Pentecostal religion, you'll hear very commonly, I'm nothing without God.
Mhm.
That's not quite true, simply because when we go in Genesis, it tells us that we are good. And if you jump on that right away and you figure out what that really means, being created in the image of God, that that says a lot about who you are as a person. So I
Yeah.
just began to discover who I really, really was on the inside, and found out that I was pretty okay. And so
Yeah.
that began my deconstruction. And so I'm here today now, just carrying the message to people and saying you're a lot more than what they've given you credit for. You've been told some things that weren't true.
Yeah.
There's some hidden nuggets that you don't know about, and so my job is to help expose those nuggets and bring truth.
I love it. And so how long ago was that you started on your journey to deconstruct?
I started deconstructing literally about 15 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yep.
you yeah, you've had a lot of time to actually start untangling, untwisting, and retying some stuff for
Yes.
yourself. And I love that because you talked about your our paths are somewhat similar. Because I had a religious household that I grew up in as well. But unlike you, I didn't like gravitate towards it. I ran
Mm-hmm.
from it because of the dysfunction that we
Mm-hmm.
were experiencing in the house. So I was very confused about the way that religion was saying we were supposed to be doing this, but as imperfect human beings, we were living this way. So to me, it was like, okay, I don't want nothing to do with this. And
Right.
so I completely separated from that and I went down a different path. But I like how you said that it took what it took as far as you studying the different paths of spirituality. I think that's very important as well, being able to be exposed to different types of teachings in spirituality because there's a lot of similarities in all of them, really. But in order for you to deconstruct, I think it is important to actually have some sort of knowledge base of different sources of information. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, especially when you talked about the Bible and the scriptures, because I find myself now more interested in the scriptures reading it metaphysically. It's like, oh, okay, you guys are missing the point here. Like
You
this,
bet.
I'm like, this book is like off the chain. Like my favorite parts of the Bible, honestly, are the Old Testament
Yep.
and Revelations. I'm like, there
Yep.
is a lot of symbolic messaging in
Yes.
there. And then of course the Jesus story is talking about, and to me, the God in me,
There you go.
the what it is that I'm supposed to be expressing, or
Right.
attaining to be. So yeah, I found myself later on coming back around to the Bible, like, okay, let me pick this thing up and read it from my understanding
Mm-hmm.
and from what I get out of it. And I love how you talked about getting to know yourself.
It is.
You
It
said,
really is a journey to get to know you. It is.
yeah,
Because when you come from a place of not knowing who you are and suddenly realizing that you're created in the image of
Yes.
God. You are in the image of divine, which means you radiate divine. Divine is in you,
Yes.
and they reject that right off the bat. About, oh, I'm just nothing. I'm nothing, and that tears away at your self esteem.
Yes,
it,
it
it, it
does.
it warps your self concept. You have no self development whatsoever. And so, what I've learned is that you have to build. When people start deconstructing, you provide support because there's no particular way to deconstruct. So,
Hmm.
our job is to help support people as they deconstruct with all the positive. Let me help you find yourself. Let me get you self get you aware of who you are. Let me help you as you're discovering what you like, because religion will tell you what to like and not to like. It'll tell you
Hmm.
A, B, and C. It'll tell you black from white. There's no gray area, and you are just programmed to think a certain way. So you've got to do all that deprogramming, and that's like having your firm foundation ripped out from under you. And when that happens, you don't know who you are, because everything
Hmm.
you've stood for and would die for literally no longer exists. And
Yes,
so
very
finding
well
yourself
said.
is crucial. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I enjoyed. All I knew was that I was programmed to move as a robot, and that
Yep.
is not that is not what spirituality is really about. Spirituality is about living to the fullest. It's about living your purpose. It's about radiating light, radiating love, and being love, because that's who you are. We are not the physical body. And so if we present as a physical body and behave as one, that's where you get the violence and the hatred and the
Hmm.
behaviors that we see in the world today. So right now, if you just look at, here I am spirit, and spirit is light, and spirit is love, and that's what I really, really am in my true nature. You're going to behave that way because our thoughts are things, and they create who we are. It creates our environment. It creates our external world. So if I believe that, then that's what I get. I'm going to have
Absolutely.
everything that I say. And if I say I'm going to be loved, that's what I'm going to have.
Wow, well said, well said. You just
Thank you.
broke that down. You just
It's
broke that down. You sound like somebody who is a woman all her own, who knows where she's going, who knows where she came from to get where she's going. And I love that. So you talked about the Course of Miracles. You talked about your journey. Now, was this a self journey, or did you have like community along the way to kind of, like you said, support you with this?
it was just me, and
Yeah.
that made it all the more crucial
Yeah.
because I was hanging on for dear life. Um, when you walk away from denomination and formal organization, you also abandon, and I use that word
Mhm.
loosely, the people that you
And
were
get
once affiliated
abandoned.
with, or they abandon you.
Yeah.
Depends on which way you look at it. But you make a decision to walk away from the people and the networking, and if you go to church, if you're in a Pentecostal environment and you go to church 5 nights a week, that's your family. And when you
Yeah.
walk away from that, you got nothing to do and nowhere to go and nobody to talk to. So I gravitated towards a lot of things that were simply online. I started studying Course in Miracles on my own. At that time, there was no online community that I could find. So I bought the books and I did the reading, and eventually things began to materialize. There's online communities now where you can go. There are people who are speaking out now about deconstruction. There's a group
Yes.
that's called I forget, it's called like Reclaim something, I forget. But I joined that group because it was support for people who were doing the same things I was doing. Then I found out I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
But long story short, the journey was all mine. Um, and I had to do it that way because that was the only way I could beat the depression that went with it,
Yeah.
because I needed to be strong enough on my own and be able to stand on my own 2 feet in order to be able to say, I did this. Not because I need the credit, but because I can't be a leader and show other people the way out of the dark unless I've done it myself.
Absolutely. And that no matter what you're doing, whatever your purpose is, if it's to help other people, you have to go through the journey and the walk
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
Everything.
Yep.
So I love that. And the more I hear you speak, I'm like, I can really see you leading a group, like you leading a community that you're talking about, because the time is now, with
Yeah.
everything that's happening on the planet, age of Aquarius, people are leaving church more than ever.
More than
And they're
ever.
asking questions. They want
Yes.
answers to the same things that your spirit was like, hey, wait a minute, something's off with this. And so,
Yes.
and they're like everything you described. They're scared, they're depressed, they're losing family, they're losing friends, and I get that too. Oh my gosh, do I get that? I actually think recently I realized that I was like, I didn't have a whole lot of close friends,
Hmm.
growing, as a young adult, and that was because that was my community.
Right.
And once I decided, hey, I'm going on my own path, I was pretty much excommunicated. It was like, oh,
Right.
don't deal with her, she's reading other books,
Yep.
so
Yes.
I didn't even think about that loneliness that comes with it. And sometimes people even lose their family members behind it.
Yes, yes, and
Yes.
a lot of that, of course, depends on the denomination that you walk away
Yes.
from. That's very, very common. And even though, because I've rotated through so many different denominations, I can kind of relate to pretty much everything, without the naming denominations. In
Mhm.
some, you are literally excommunicated. In
Yep.
some, you walk away and you are shunned. In
Right.
some, you walk away and you're automatically assumed to be a heretic, a
Mhm.
witch. Um, they put you in a box, and part of and the reason why I bring that up is because when you're deconstructing, there's a lot of healing that has to take place. So the support that you get is necessary because you are now doubly wounded. You are wounded
Yeah.
from the religion and the trauma of it, and then you get wounded because you have now tried to express yourself and you've been denied that opportunity because you can't talk to anybody, and the people don't believe you. You've walked away from your life as you knew it, and now you're wounded all over again.
Mm.
And some people don't survive that process,
Yeah. You-
unfortunately. And so you hear about the suicides, and you hear and people say, oh, but they were always so nice and they were always so pleasant. Well, they had to be, because that's what we were taught. As women in religion, we were taught you be polite, you be kind, you be nice, depending on how you define nice. And so you
Right.
don't come out of that persona. And when you finally break away from it and no one receives you, it really does a number on your heart and your spirit. It breaks your spirit. And so you see a lot of people that just give up. And you're wondering why people are dying young. And they say, well, she was always in church and she was always happy and she was dedicated to her family. The trauma alone kills because of the stress of it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that's one of the things that I stand for, because I know that many women in the community are, I mean, since the pandemic, there's been a monumental rise in mental health issues. We're looking at upwards of 40% of women who are now clinically depressed,
Mhm.
um, and have the symptoms of PTSD, which I can't diagnose, obviously, and they're suffering with anxiety that's just off the charts, and the
Mhm.
numbers are actually higher than the 40%, because those are just the people who actually get the help. Most people don't
Yeah.
even speak on it, and
That's
they
true.
don't reach out.
Yeah, especially in our community. That's just
Yes,
not that's a brand new concept right now. So,
it's extremely new.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and you're so right about that. Something else I wanted to touch on, that you talked about, the depression and anxiety that you experienced from childhood did not begin to get healed until you start deconstructing.
right.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
When you are in an organized religion, there is a path that you take in that religion. When someone's telling you when to get up, when to lay down, when to eat, when to sleep, when to fast, when not to fast, when you've got the instructions in front of you, it's very easy. You don't have to make a decision. You know your eternal life situation because somebody already told you what it was going to be.
Mhm.
When you walk away from religion, you are standing out there on your own. And that is a scary feeling. You are not sure of anything. And the depression and the anxiety sets in because now you're wondering if I made the wrong decision. Am I even capable of
Yes.
making a decision? Did I do the right thing? Am I wearing the right clothes? Am I going to hell? You know,
Hmm.
the anxiety of performing wears you out. And when you don't know who you are, that the anger starts to come out. And the anger
Hmm.
is nothing but the depression inside out, because now you don't know who you are, where you're going. You have no one to tell you
Hmm.
what to do. And you're already doubting yourself. Your self esteem had already been broken. You don't have a self concept, and it leaves you feeling empty. And that's a depression. You're just a shell, because you don't
Yeah.
have the mind to say I'm strong enough to make this decision. I'm strong enough to
Mm.
identify my emotions, because we don't identify in religion. We're only told to feel two things,
Yeah.
and both of those have to do with joy, and they have to do with being jubilant.
Right. That's
um
the two extremes, right?
exactly. There is no, well, let me feel sad. If you're sad,
Yeah.
then you automatically get branded, as I did, as a demon.
Yeah. You're not worshiping hard enough. You don't
You're
believe
not
in God enough. You're not praying enough.
exactly.
And there's so much guilt and shame that's surrounded with just the human experience of discovering ourselves, like you described, and religion. That, it just brought up in my mind. Sometimes I wonder if that's why some people are afraid to use their spiritual gifts. They don't
Absolutely.
realize that it's still connected to that programming from the beginning, whether they're going to religious functions or not anymore, but they see something, they feel something, they dream something, and then they just stuff it away like, oh yeah, that
Right.
can't be
Right.
because,
A lot of it has to do with the patriarchy, for
yes.
us, and I feel free enough to say that as a female in ministry, it was very difficult because if
Hmm.
you have that ability to see and to hear and to feel into things, if you're empathetic, if
Hmm.
you follow your intuition, they don't use those words.
Hmm.
And so the fact that you don't use the words means that it's not God, and it's
Hmm.
automatically branded as demonic. So
Hmm.
you're not taught how to use your gifts and how to express those gifts. You're taught put them away,
Right.
ignore it. Don't pay attention to that dream. There's nothing there. Ignore what your heart is telling you because it's not real. And
Hmm.
when you don't, and the thing is, when you don't identify those things and you don't identify the emotions,
Yes.
you're lost, because the emotions are the roadmaps. We have them
Yes.
for a reason. In this physical body, we need them. If you're experiencing anger, there's a reason. Anger is
Yeah.
telling you that you're in a bad situation and you need to do something about it. And they're quick to say, well, you're not supposed to get angry. Where
Good
did
luck
you
with
read
that.
that one? Exactly. I never read that. you know
Yeah.
so we have to understand that our emotions matter, and our gifts are a direct result of how we manage our emotions.
Mm.
People don't understand that if you're going to exercise your gift, like there's people who know what's going to happen in the future. I'm one of those
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I can hear it coming, I can see it coming, and if I express it the wrong way, it's not going to be received. That's
Hmm.
the first thing. But some people say, well, I just feel it in my gut. Well, you're not supposed to trust
Hmm.
your feelings, is what you're told.
That's
So
crazy.
so so when I went to leadership and said, show me what to do, I'm dreaming these dreams, and I was told by one pastor, you need to leave my church and you cannot come
Wow.
back here. And the very thing that I dreamt actually came, and it actually manifested, and it happened. And it was about a murder among the leadership in the church. And it did happen. And I didn't know what to do with it because those are very heavy topics.
Right.
And as a female, a young female, young black female, you are not revered.
Yeah. And that's across quite a few religions.
Yes.
So like you said,
Yes.
because of the whole patriarchy thing. And I've even actually noticed some of that in traditional African spirituality too,
Yes.
because some of them have adopted that patriarchal mindset of,
Yes.
men are supposed to be leading this and women are supposed to be. It's amazing the parts people want to adopt to suit their
Mm-hmm.
own needs. And then,
Mm-hmm.
try
Mm-hmm.
to tell somebody else that you have to
Yep.
be perfect,
Right.
flawless,
Right.
and
And there is no such animal.
right, right. And I love it. I love your energy. I'm definitely getting this divine mother goddess energy.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
because
you.
yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
definitely getting that. You've got a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience, that I know that these listeners are going to like love this podcast episode, especially when you talked about the depression, and you broke that down, like,
Hmm.
how that is sometimes connected to the deconstructing of the religion. I think that will give a lot of people peace to
I hope
understand
so.
that, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, this is not
Yes.
abnormal. Oh, I can keep pushing forward, and continue to grow. So I love that. I love that. So getting on the other side, I'm sure as you started deconstructing, learning about yourself, definitely the Course of Miracles, you started awakening spiritually,
Hmm.
all across the board. What is one of the things that you found helpful, like healing tools that you found helpful for yourself, in the process?
Well, obviously, journaling was at the top of the list, and that took a lot of different forms. It
Hmm.
it 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 matures just as you mature. Your journaling matures
Yes.
because the way you express yourself gets a little bit more sophisticated. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just write. You write how you feel. Journaling now is not the typical diary with a lock on it when you're 12. It
Hmm.
is get your notebook, get your journal, do whatever you got to do, and you write what you're feeling, what
Mm.
you're thinking. You process things from the day, not necessarily make a log of what happened, but you use your journal to process how you're feeling about what happened. And that's where the healing comes in, because you're not just recounting events as an outside observer of your own life. You're actually feeling back into what you experienced, and you're writing it down, and you're saying, this is how I felt, and this is what I said, and I feel like now I should have said ABCD, or I feel like I should have done. And that's where you begin to get your legs. You get to feel, okay, that's not such a bad idea. And so it makes sense when it's on paper, because now you have someone to bounce it off of. And hand in hand with the journaling goes meditation, because now you
Mm.
have a piece of paper in front of you that says, here was my day, and now I'm meditating, and I'm getting quiet. I'm not out into the grocery store trying to figure this out. I am in the comforts of my own home, in my quiet space, and I'm able to hear my
Yes.
intuition. I'm able to feel back into what I just wrote, and find out, am I comfortable with this? And that's where you gain your self trust. And self trust is at the top of the list when it
Yeah.
comes to finding out who you are.
Yep. It's right up there next to intuition. If you want to
Yep.
start trusting that intuition, you got to trust yourself first as
Yep.
that divine being,
That's
you
right.
know?
That's
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
And you can't reach outside of yourself
Right.
to get it. You got to know that it's in you, because traditional organized religion teaches you that God is out there somewhere.
Yes.
And I didn't have my awakening actually started with a vision. And the vision was, I was meditating, and I saw a little old man with a beard sitting on a throne somewhere in the sky. And the vision just said poof, it disappeared. And the little pieces of the vision just dissipated. And I believed that that vision was showing me that the God that I traditionally knew as a person on the throne, first of all,
Hmm.
wasn't a person. It was the cosmos.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. Every particle was everywhere, including in me and in my DNA.
Yep.
And so when you realize that much, it empowers you so greatly, because now he's not out there, he's in you. And you're able to trust that, because now you don't think of yourself as stupid, or you don't criticize yourself. There's no negative self-talk, because now you're afraid to speak against who you really are. And the Bible is correct, because it says your body is the temple. This
That's
flesh
right.
is the temple for the indwelling of the divine.
Yeah. That's why, if read a certain way and read properly, I think more people would be rushing to church. They
You
would
better
have they
believe it.
would they would have it full, and it wouldn't necessarily be about people needing to be there, but just getting spiritually fed with
Just being
community and
fed.
like-minded individuals on the same path. But instead, it is to keep up a certain agenda of
Right.
patriarchy, control, domination, fear, and a whole lot of negative things that are actually the opposite of God consciousness. And
Exactly.
yeah, and
Exactly.
even like I go by goddess, goddess Z all the time, and sometimes people have a problem with that, and I'm like, I'm not your God. I just know that I am every day. That's how I'm living.
That's how I am.
Is
That's how I'm
is how,
living.
yeah, I attain to be God conscious and God expressing, goddess expressing.
Yes.
I do a lot with the divine feminine. Um,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
the way that I live. That's something I'm starting to understand more about, is the divine mother and the divine feminine as we come back into that era, with the age of Aquarius, so desperately needed, because look how
Mm-hmm.
patriarchy has done us.
Exactly.
Patriarchy has done us all. It's
Done.
like it's time for us to take the wheel back. So I'm looking for
Exactly.
that. We need that nurture and that love and that healing, that you're
And I
talking
think
about.
the fact that you bring up the age of Aquarius, I think is so relevant at this point, because this is the point where people are awakening.
Hmm.
The church is going to say, well, this is called the great falling away, where people are leaving the church, and these people they're destined for hell, they're destined for damnation. The flip side of that is people are awakening to truth,
Yes.
because there was a lot of things that we were taught that simply are not correct.
Hmm.
And so they're waking up to that, and being in this age, people are moving toward more towards the individualism. I
Yes.
mean, we still have that communal thing that we need to do, and that's obviously another podcast. But
Hmm.
the fact that you said I identify as Goddess Z. You know who you are. That's the
Hmm.
individual part. I know
Yeah.
who I am. I know where I stand, and I stand firmly in my identity. And
Yes.
that's what the Age of Aquarius is about. That's part of the awakening of knowing exactly
Yes.
who you are as an individual, and then knowing how you have your spot in the world.
Yes, and how we fit in the collective. And,
Yep.
each person has a purpose, and there's
Yep.
not this competition and,
Right.
higher or lower, and all of these different human aspects. We start to live more inwardly, outwardly, as I say, more spirit,
Exactly. Yes.
and the whole planet needs that. We heal
Yes.
ourselves, we help heal other people, and then we heal the planet. Like it's all interconnected,
It
you
is.
know.
We
I
are
love
not
it.
separate. And
Hmm.
we all grab hands. We're all one. So what
That's right.
affects you affects me. What affects me affects you. And it
That's
affects the
right.
people down the street and the people around the corner and the dog that's in your living room. Everyone
Right.
is affected.
Yeah.
And I think that we've forgotten that we're one. We don't realize that color has nothing to do with it. We
Yes.
don't because that's just the shell. That's not who
Yeah.
we are because I'm spirit. Doesn't matter what body I came
Right.
in,
And
you know,
all that was by design. All
by
that
design.
distraction, came around the same time that the King James Version Bible
Exactly.
came around. Like
Exactly.
literally, that's
Exactly.
no accident. If you actually start exploring, deconstructing, and looking at things,
That's
then you
right.
start to see the agenda. Then
That's
you're like,
right.
wait a minute,
That's right.
somebody came up with this idea. This was a somebody,
This was a
and most likely
somebody
it was a he. you
or
know
several he's.
several he's, definitely wasn't the women, and so to me, the true story and the truth about ourselves is so much more exciting.
It is.
So much, the journey of that is so magnificent. It has to be experienced. It can't even really be
Yes. You
described.
can't describe it. It's
Yeah.
it's it's beyond words. And and not only is it beyond words, it is miraculous in and of itself.
Yeah.
The awakening is miraculous because we're
Yes.
so steeped in it. To come out of it is a miracle. And to
Yes.
wake up is a miracle. To open your eyes and see the truth is a miracle. And of course the miracles teaches that. And I'm not necessarily saying everyone should go out and read it, but I am
Yes,
saying
it's
that
good.
that's all part of the whole awakening process. Once you realize that you're not separate from God and that you're connected to everyone and everything, and that we are in the image of God, it changes your life.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I love it. You talked about meditation. What do you think about prayer? Do you still pray? And do you still, I mean, because I know obviously you meditate. So do you still
Right.
pray?
I do. My prayers have changed.
Me too.
The nature of my prayers have changed because now prayer for me, well, let me go back. What prayer used to be was get on my knees and start asking for stuff.
Yeah.
Very simple. Meditation is totally different, but prayer for me now is gratitudes. I get up in the morning and I start thinking, this is what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for my place in the universe. I'm thankful for daily provision. I am grateful for the awakening. I'm grateful for whatever has happened that night or the day before. My prayers now are a recognition of the wonders that are in the world, big or small. It's not about asking for things
Hmm.
because we the truth is we already know how to get what we need. We
Right.
just we just have not paid attention to the instruction.
Hmm.
Jesus himself said, "You will have what you say."
Hmm.
And so if I say I'm thankful for my provision, I'm gonna get it. I don't need to ask him for what I already have. I'm wasting my time. Time is one of those things where it's a tool. We live inside of it for a little bit of a while, and then we're out of time.
Right.
And then we move on to the next life, which again is another podcast.
That's a whole nother
But that's a whole
podcast.
other
Yes.
podcast. But the truth of the matter is it's only a tool. And so during the time that we're here, our job is simply to do what we're supposed to do, which is to love, show love, have compassion, have empathy. And we don't have time begging to beg for other things because if we do what we're supposed to do, we're going to get it back
Hmm.
without even having to ask. And that is one of the principles, even in A Course in Miracles, is that the
Yes.
giver is just as blessed as the receiver. So if I
Yeah.
smile at you and you smile back, we both go home happy. If I give someone a bag of rice, they're going to give me a piece of bread and we're both going to be fed.
Hmm.
It's not about let me get on my knees and beg for food because
Exactly.
God is not going to drop it out of the sky. That's
Right.
not how it works.
It's like you
What he's
got
going
it
to
in you. Start
That's
using
right.
that stuff,
That's right. That's right.
start practicing your gifts. I mean, I
Yes.
give you literally gave you everything, so
Everything you need. And we have
everything
the
you
wisdom to go out and
need.
bake the bread if we can't buy it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, and there's a lot of ways to get things. And then, of course, we walk into manifestation. When
Mhm.
we talk about that, again, that's another podcast because there were
Yep.
pieces of the canonized Bible that
Mhm.
leaned very heavily on manifestation.
I know.
I
That's why
mean,
I love the
that are
Old
not part of the
Testament.
canonized Bible, excuse me,
Yeah.
specifically the book of Thomas,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of
Okay.
information out there. It's just a matter of us wanting to find it and then
Yes.
properly apply it and not asking another person. Even
Mhm.
Jesus said, what? You will know the truth and that truth will make you free. He didn't say someone will tell you the truth and it will make you free.
Right. You
He
got to
said,
be a
you'll know.
seeker. It's a spiritual experience.
It is.
You got to experience it,
Yep.
all of it. The
You
things
got,
that lead
yep.
us to this, the pain, the joy, the sorrow, all of it.
And be willing to experience it,
Yes. Yes.
embracing the failures, the bad
Yes.
times, because there's lessons in all of it.
Yep.
I
I
had
love
someone
it.
ask me just the other day, um, well, how do you feel? I'm 58 now. And they said, well, how do you feel about the fact that you've wasted most of your life? And I laughed. I said, you have no idea of the fact that just me being over 50, for one, says that I am a woman of wisdom because I've
Mhm.
been through the fire. And that's not I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm saying this to empower anybody who's getting up in age and they feel like life is over. You need to understand that 50 is the new 20. You don't even
All
start coming
right.
into your own until you gain wisdom. And the
That's
truth of the
true.
matter is, nothing is a waste because everything that you've gone through, every pain, every tear, every sorrow, every trial
Mhm.
has always had a purpose for your life. And it's not just for you because you're going to carry it to someone else because now you can empathize with the person down the street who went through it.
Yep.
And they're
That's
going to
so
be able
true.
to look at you and say, oh, if you did it and you can show me how you did it, to have made it. And it's a ripple effect.
It is, it is. And I haven't hit 50 yet, and I thought I was really doing something at 40, so that's hope.
Yeah,
That's hope.
girl.
I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable, I know who I am,
Hmm.
I have some skill sets that I learned, some wisdom and experience, and I'm like, man, I'm loving this age instead of 20 something. They can have that.
Exactly.
It was too much. I didn't know nothing. I was
it
going
gets
through
it
a
gets better. I wouldn't lie
yeah.
to you. It gets better, and
I love
I
that.
actually I hurt for those who think they're over the hill, as they say.
Hmm.
But people do not, like fine wine. You have to be given a chance to
That's
mature.
right.
You don't jump up at 20 and you're suddenly mature just because you hit the drinking age, or it just doesn't work that way. That's the mindset of the world, and I mean I don't mean the world as in the world meaning sinful. I mean the world as in our culture has valued youth over wisdom and age.
Oh no. Like listen, I've got my daughters are in their 20s, their early 20s, so I know.
Okay.
And I'm like, you know, when I look at them, I'm like, "Oh my God, I didn't know nothing." I'm so grateful to
Didn't.
be there to teach them because
Yep. Yep.
they will always need their mother,
Always.
just like I need mine, for
That's
the
right.
each phase, I don't know what it's like on the next side, the next age range. So yeah, I love that. I love everything about this episode. This has been amazing.
Oh,
Um
thank you.
yeah, and since you talked about, obviously you made it on the other side. You are living, in your full expressing self and still growing and still expanding your consciousness. Tell me some ways that you learned to take care of yourself, like some self care for you as you started to come into your own.
I began to do the things that I liked. And that sounds very simple, but when you've jumped to everyone else's tune for so long, doing what you like matters. So some of those
Yes.
things were very basic. I went back to what I know, which is listening to music.
Oh, I
Because
love that.
music, it hits your heart, hits your soul, hits everything about you, and it has the ability to change your mood. So I went
Mhm.
back to the music that I love. I went back to writing, not just
Yes.
journaling, but just sheer writing. Because I used to write poetry when I was growing up, and somehow
Hmm.
somebody talked me out of it, and that was the end of that. I went
Yep.
back to writing poetry. I went back to self expression. I went back to um, little things, buying soaps
Yeah.
that were decadent, so that I could bathe in them.
Hmm.
Those are things. I mean, yeah, self care is not always about the manicures and the pedicures.
Hmm.
It's about doing what will serve you. And sometimes that's walking around barefoot in the grass.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's standing outside in the middle of the snow and just feeling back into nature, playing with my cat,
Yay.
you know. And I know these sound like very basic things, but self care again is all about caring about what matters to you. Just like we anticipate the needs of our for example, if you were caretaking for your mom, you anticipate her needs and you meet them. You make her favorite meals. Do the same for yourself. Set the table. Use the fine china. Don't eat in front of the television.
Hmm.
Do the things that feel good for you. And that is the big part of self-care. And you can't go wrong with that because you're honoring who you are and you're honoring the divine in you. And at the same time, you're getting a chance to rest and relax. And that's where your creativity will come back out because you're now in a position where I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling content. Now I can go and create. And
That's true.
again, another podcast as being
It
a
is.
co-creator. you know,
It is, and I love that because speaking about the gifts, it's spiritual gifts and gifts that we left behind because
right.
I didn't start writing until I think it was 22, 23, or 24. But I used to write poetry. It's like you said, when I was younger, and I was like, why did I ever stop that? How
Yep.
did I ever get away from that? Like you
Hmm.
talked about the music. I love music. I
Yeah.
sang, but I love to listen to it, dance to it, ecstatic dance, and all those things. and
Oh,
and you're so you're so right on, like just doing what makes you feel good.
yes.
So I love it. So thank you so much. This has been such
Thank
an
you.
enlightening conversation. I know the guests are going to love it. Tell us how we can find you.
You can find me on Substack. You can find me on Instagram. My Substack publication is called Sacred Deconstruction. And on Instagram, I am the intuitive healing alchemist.
All right, y'all get over there and follow her because I have a feeling she's going to be doing a lot of helping people very, very near in the near future. Because there's a lot of people who I
Yes.
know are going to hear this and be like, "Ooh, ooh, I want to talk to her because she
Yes.
sounds like she knows what she's talking about." And you're okay, and you're sane, and you're better than sane. You know who you are.
Thank you. And I
So
wanted to, so anyone who's listening that gets in contact with me, I definitely get back in contact with them. So I have no problem reaching back out. So don't anyone feel like, well, I don't have time for that. I do get back to people.
yeah,
So just
absolutely.
so definitely, and understand that you are not by yourself.
Mm. Yeah, actually, there's a sis I think I may shoot your way because I know that she's actually going through the process and similar to yours, she was a minister at one point. So yeah, she's has a lot to deconstruct and she's always talking about that. So I'll definitely
Okay.
shoot her your way.
Thank you.
And then for the people who don't know what Substack is a writing community where we write blogs and short stories. So Paulina's over there writing as well. So if you like to read, definitely check her out on Substack at Sacred Deconstruction. And I'll make sure that I have all that information down in the description, like I always do. And once again, thank you so much, Paulina. It has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on here
Thank you for
today.
having me. Thank you so much. You were so gracious. I
Thank
do
you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure maybe we'll do one of those part twos later on this year.
Hey, anything's possible.
All right. All
All
right.
right. Thank you so
Peace.
much.
You're welcome.